lot of screaming kids here today for whatever reason. I thought school should be back in session, isn't it? And with that in mind, what's going on today? It's kind of interesting reading this one. I guess with the death of the Queen, there is apparently going to be a funeral, I guess, next week on Monday, and it sounds like they're really going to prepare in terms of security with drones and stuff. This one says, Queen Elizabeth II, mounted police and drone patrols in Windsor. This is actually kind of weird when you think about it, just based on what a lot of people say anyways. This one here says, the horses provide officers with a height advantage, enabling them to see into crowds, said Thames Valley Police. The animals are experienced at being in exceptionally busy areas and managing large crowds, it added. The force said it would also be deploying its drone unit. The drones would be, quote, flying high and live streaming to pilots on the ground who are on the lookout for anything suspicious, it explained. Her Majesty's state funeral will take place on Monday in Westminster Abbey, attended by her family, senior UK politicians, and head of state from across the world, as well as representatives from the charities she supported. That's expected, where eventually more people will be using drones for security purposes as well, but it's just so contradicting and hypocritical with how much fear-mongering like officials basically say in terms of recreational drones, stuff like that. Yet here it's okay for you to fly a drone around, I guess, a busy area. And in that case, why aren't you worried, hey, you're gonna kill this person, that person, hit an airplane and so forth? But one of the most interesting things is just to talk about the animals, like the horses, how they get used to busy environments and all that, yet you're flying this drone high in the air. I mean, you have some activists, for example, always say, oh, you should never fly a drone, for example, around an animal. It'll give them a heart attack. Whereas I would say if they get used to it, then it'll be basically no big deal to them, just like in these situations. Or at the same time, remember all those stories of people flying, I don't know, 80 meters in the air and people are claiming that harasses a whale, for example? How would this be any different? Like, that's so contradicting and hypocritical. I mean, bottom line, it's a tool and it depends how you use it, but in my opinion, you should be consistent. Although with that said, it was interesting to kind of read how, with all that news of drone swarms and stuff like that, like here it says actually the British Army has been testing out more drone swarms. Like this one says, British Army carries out successful swarming drone capability. They even released like promotional videos and stuff for it. It says, a breakthrough in technology and innovation for the British Army took place on Salisbury Plain recently, where a demonstration of multiple unmanned aerial systems took place. Funded by Army headquarters, the Nano Unmanned Aerial System project completed a live multiple drone demonstration, also known as swarming drones, pushing technological boundaries. And according to the colonel here, it says, we are working in collaboration with the Future Capabilities Group, part of the Defense Equipment and Support Construct. The standout feature of this event is that you are seeing a military operator control more than one drone at the same time from one single unit. This is adding scale and adding complexity, with each drone able to carry out a separate task. For their vision too, it says, in the future, we want one operator to control 6, 12, 30, 40, or more drones as part of a more integrated swarm. As we move further with future Army projects, we look to human-machine teaming, which will start to bring in ground elements as well as air elements as a combined system. And I read this, which was kind of interesting, where apparently a lot of people were spreading this around here, because when it comes to things like mandates and all that, for whatever reason, we still have them in place in a lot of scenarios, which doesn't make sense just based on all the knowledge that's out there. So this one here says, New Zealand dropping vaccine mandates and most mask requirements. And ultimately it says, these include removal of government vaccine mandates on September 26th, and international travelers will no longer be required to be vaccinated against COVID-19 or submit results upon arrival from 11:59 p.m. local time. Mask mandates will be lifted in most places from that time. Now the funny thing is, I guess in announcing this, just reading some comments online, a lot of people are still, I guess, angry because of the fact that this was put in place before and the way it was done, where they demonized certain people. So a lot of people are saying you should not, I don't know, let them get away with it per se, make sure it never happens again. So it's kind of interesting to see, I guess, the reactions. But with that thought, it's just kind of weird when you read what's happening across the world and so forth. Like here, for example, this one says, COVID-19 update for September 13th. Study co-authored by BC's top doctor says most kids have had the virus. Yet there's other stories like in the same thing here saying Ontario court rules college's vaccine mandate is legal. And Nunavut rolling out new vaccines to older residents. So here, we're insistent for whatever reason where these things should be mandated still. And for like colleges, recommending it for like kids and so forth, even though they're talking about things like natural immunity and all that. And similarly, if you go to other parts of the world, like I guess in the UK, like this one here says what? Major nations bans COVID vaccine for children under 12. Panel argues disease poses little risk prevalence of natural immunity. Britain has banned children under age 12 from receiving the COVID-19 vaccine. The decision was made by the government's Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunization, or JCVI, which argued young children are at very low risk of developing severe disease from COVID, and most will have gained natural immunity from the infections, The Guardian of London reported. Ultimately, when you read all this logically, somebody has it wrong in terms of the science, because this can't be true, for example, where one person is saying their side is correct in terms of the quote science to enforce these, I guess, mandates, and the other side saying you don't need it because of this science. Somebody is wrong here. I think the interesting thing during these times too is kind of like I said, where a lot of people are upset even though they're withdrawing it in certain places. They're saying, well, look at what you did like all these years. It makes you wonder, like in these cases, what type of person were you during these times where it doesn't matter what side you kind of took, how did you treat people who made, I guess, like a different decision in that case? Were you understanding, for example, saying, I don't know, they choose to do it this way or that way? Did you demonize them, saying they can all go die and this and that? Because I think that will be the big issue, and that's actually one thing that I would be more worried about. It's not even so much of what side did you take, this or that, is are you open-minded enough to admit where in the future, whatever turns out to be the case, are you willing to admit that you're wrong, or would you still be in extreme denial in that sense where all the proof is out there? That would be the scary part, because I can easily see there some people will be obsessed and still trying to attack certain people. That's probably how like a cult and stuff develops, correct? So it'd be kind of interesting to see how this pans out. Alright, see you guys later.